The Philadelphia 76ers find themselves in the headlines for all the wrong reasons once again. Most recently, Joel Embiid has found himself in a little bit of trouble for allegedly shoving a reporter inside the Sixers locker room. I'm going to break down exactly what went down, what led up to these events, why there should be a little bit of sympathy for Joel in this situation, and really just break down what we know in the situation. So there's a lot to get into for this one. This was a bit of a loaded video. I'm going to start out with exactly what we know. There's a lot of context to the situation that I think is important to provide, but I'm going to start with kind of the breaking news from Shams Charania, who tweeted out last night that 76ers Joel Embiid got in an altercation with a columnist following tonight's game in Philadelphia. Embiid took issue with a recent column that referenced his late brother and son, and Embiid shoved the columnist. No punch. And that is an important distinguishing factor there, that there was not an actual, punch to the man here. Now, the context of the situation I do think is very important. The reporter in question, his name is Marcus Hayes, who works for the Philadelphia Inquirer. This is a guy that Joel Embiid has taken issue with in the past and is the reason that Joel was so direct in kind of bringing up things in his most recent press conference. Now, I've seen a lot of criticism from Marcus Hayes not being there for that specific press conference at practice. To give a little bit of context and defense here, it's not announced ahead of time by the Sixers who's going to be speaking on a daily basis. So going to that practice, it was not aware that Joel Embiid would be speaking to the media. I do think Marcus Hayes consciously went to last night's game after writing this article, and to dive into exactly what was written in the article here, this is what I do think is important to check out. So the context of the lead of this in the Philadelphia Inquirer, which was published, went through all their editors, all the whole process, this went to print here. Marcus Hayes wrote, Joel Embiid consistently points to the birth of his son Arthur as the major inflection point in his basketball career. He often says that he wants to be great and leave a legacy for the boy named after his little brother, who tragically died in an automobile accident when Embiid was in his first year as a 76er. Well, in order to be great at your job, you first have to show up for work. Embiid has been great at just the opposite. Now in his 11th season, he consistently has been in poor condition. This poor conditioning apparently seems to have delayed his debut this season. Embiid won't play in Wednesday's opener or the next two games. And that right there is what Joel Embiid took offense to. Now, for full clarity here, Joel Embiid's relationship with his brother has been something he's been incredibly open about and incredibly emotional about over the years. In the full context of this, Joel's brother Arthur passed away at the age of 13 back in Cameroon. This was in Joel Embiid's first season with the Sixers, chasing his basketball dream. And he's spoken a lot about kind of the regret for not being there for his family, how hard it was that he had such a tight relationship with Arthur, and not to be there at such a time of need for his family. It was really tough. That it did send Joel into quite the spiral. He was dealing with some real depression, some real issues. This all being before he ever stepped on the NBA floor, but after he was drafted and obviously being in America where he left his whole family to go to. So that's kind of why he takes this personal. Again, he has been really open about this to the media. The problem I have with this article specifically here is the point that Marcus is making is not one that is a fair overall point to make. The way you go about it is absolutely wrong, and you kind of lose all the edge or the point you're trying to make by taking these unnecessary digs that I personally feel Joel has every right to be upset about. Now, as far as the context of what led up to these next things here, I can say, and to give a little background, that I did work a year as the on-beat report, doing the interviews, doing all the press conference, those type of things. Worked for Heavy Sports at the time, and my full background in this is I started as a writer for Philly Sports Network, grew into the Sixers lead writer for them. That opened the door for me writing for Clutch Points, which opened the door for me getting the beat reporter job through Heavy Sports. And the little inside baseball there is, unfortunately, it was a month-to-month contract. They ended up not picking it up, and we moved on, reinvent myself from here, and here I am. So I do have a little bit of insight on how things went down in there, and also have a relationship with as pretty much all of the beat reporters at this point, that I can tell you what a good guy the Sandy Giovannis and Zach Chavalellos are, that Adam Aronson is truly the next bright star growing into this Sixers beat reporter path. I can tell you that I think Kyle Neubeck is the gold standard for how reporting should be done from a Sixers standpoint, and I've seen kind of the ins and outs of how this goes. So there's two levels to things as far as the media coverage is. Level 1 and Level 2. Personally, have only done the Level 1, which is the press conference. The player stands at the podium. You take turns asking as many questions as it happens. So that is how the night started last night. Then goes to Level 2, which is the locker room access, which tends to be for the more established, the guys that are credentialed in that type of situation here. So that is where this situation went down. And to pull up what we saw with Joel Embiid with this specific situation is, well, I'll first say kind of the accounts that I got from it is Joel saw Marcus Hayes walk in the locker room. And again, this is a guy that directly he has an issue with. This is a Marcus Hayes issue. And despite some of the portrayals, this is not Joel Embiid versus Sixers fans. This is Joel Embiid versus Marcus Hayes, that he took issue with that being written, which I think is fair. I think you can say Joel's oversensitive to it. The bottom line is, in my opinion, you have a right to be upset about that if that is the situation and we know all the background there. So Marcus Hayes walks in the locker room and Joel Embiid is directly kind of attacking him here. That he's the summation and basically what he's saying is, you can say that I suck, you can say I'm the worst basketball player in the world, you can say whatever you want about me on the court, but when you bring my family into it, we're going to have an issue. And if you do that again, we're going to have an issue that I'm ready to deal with the repercussions of. So for sure, threatening from Joel. Now, I also heard Marcus Hayes attempted to apologize to Joel, that he said the story has changed. He apologized for writing it. Joel wanted no part of the apology, that he stated directly to Marcus that this is not the first time that we've had this kind of issue. This is not the first time that you've written stuff like that. And in all honesty here, Joel's right, that Marcus, both in a Philadelphia-wide landscape, that he's written bad things about the A.J. Brown, Nick Sirianni, Donovan McNabb back in the day, he was real critical of, that he's done this for a lot of athletes in Philadelphia, that I think he tries to take this contrarian approach while thinking outside of the box and just kind of creates a little bit of drama that is unnecessary. That's part of being a columnist, but I do think Hayes goes about the wrong way far more often than anyone else in the city. And with Joel specifically, he has done exactly that. So then Joel says directly that, and he says, quote, "The next time you bring up my dead brother and my son again, you are going to see what I'm going to do to you, and I'm going to have to live with the consequences," Embiid says to Hayes. Embiid continued with several instances of profanity in the next few sentences. Hayes offered an apology, which Embiid did not want. "That's not the effing first time," Embiid said. Embiid later said that he doesn't care what reporters say, and, quote, "But you do," Hayes answered. And this is another moment to me that, he's stirring the pot a little bit. That, yes, Hayes is right here, that Joel's obviously taking this sensitive, but it's not like he takes issue with the actual premise of the article of him not being available enough. Again, I do think that's a legitimate, fair critique of Joel Embiid, but you can make that fair critique of Joel Embiid without bringing up his family history and things that he feels quite emotional about. And I also do love this portion here, that it was allegedly asked that a couple of the Sixers media members requested this not be reported in the short term, and Joel said, well, at the same time, a team security person asked the media not to report on what had happened, and Embiid yelled over the security guard, "They can do whatever they want, I don't give a shit," which, he was ready for this, is I guess my overall point from Joel Embiid here. Now, I think this specific altercation is especially notable coming the exact same day where Jason Kelce is smashing someone's phone on the ground at Penn State for, being called a couple of choice words, and there's obviously a little bit different situation here. This is more of a professional standpoint with Joel. It's not okay for Joel to be out there pushing columnists. But what I do think is a notable takeaway, particularly over the last few days, is this quote from Mike Tyson that says, "Social media made y'all way too comfortable with disrespecting people and not getting punched in the face." A couple layers to this, my full takeaway. I do think Marcus Hayes has done a bad job covering Joel Embiid. I do think he oversteps the line in a way that is just unnecessary and, in my eyes, just diminishes his points here. That, again, my takeaway is you can make the point you're trying to make without pulling in the extracurriculars, without diving in and, reaching for things like his dead brother, which I do think is a fair line to draw when you're Joel Embiid. I think the takeaway of you can say whatever you want about me on the basketball court, but don't bring up my family is absolutely fair. And while we get lost in how much money these guys make, with these superstars, the celebrity status that they achieve, it should not be forgotten that they are human beings. And you and I would react pretty much the exact same way to what Joel did to that. Now, the way that he went about it is absolutely fair to critique. The NBA is currently investigating things. We will see what the outcome of this. I think Joel probably catches a fine, and that's probably the extent of it, but I'm not going to say getting suspended is off the table, which once again would be extremely funny to me based on how much critique there has been for Joel not playing this far this year. So it's frustrating that we keep getting derailed by these off-court situations, things that aren't actually about the play. The Sixers just dropped to 1-4 last night in a really disappointing loss to the Grizzlies where they did not show up whatsoever. Joel Embiid and Paul George have still yet to step on the floor this season. There's some real issues within the team. But in my eyes, to be perfectly honest, good on Joel for stepping up and taking care of business in this one. I understand it isn't the ideal way to handle this, but I can say firsthand, I did think it was lazy journalism from Marcus Hayes. I respect the stones of Hayes to step in there and face the music, which I do think was his intentions there. That's kind of one of those writer rules that when you write something about a guy, you got to be willing to step in there and say it to their face, and that seems what he was trying to do. I don't know how sincere the apology was on his eye, or coming out of his mouth there. I would like to hear a little bit more of that, but from everything that has been reported and that I've heard on the situation, Joel basically talked over it and didn't give it a chance, saying how it's not his first time. And I do think that's right. Joel's right to feel that way as well. And the last thing that I will note is I do think there is a large distinguishing factor between it being a punch and a push. Keith Pompey, also of the Philadelphia Inquirer, which tough look for them across the board here, did initially report that it was a punch from Joel. First, he used the word assaulted a columnist. Then he said it was a punch, and then he did delete that tweet and turn off comments on his other tweets there. That's an important distinguishing, situation there. I do think I treat this differently, and everyone should if it's a push or a punch here. It's not like Joel physically attacked the dude. He laid a little bit of hands on him. He seems to more of a get in his face kind of bump situation from what's being reported. But I think it would probably be in the best interest of anyone if you do leak a little bit of that security footage, which I'm sure was hovering around things there. So we'll see how things go in the coming days. It is frustrating that I feel like so much of our time is spent talking about non-on-court basketball play, and I think that's a little bit of Joel Embiid's point in the overall situation here. So there's plenty to write, plenty to talk about the Sixers team moving forward on the actual floor, and that's what I hope to be able to do from here. So for Joel Embiid, I do think you took one for the team here, that I do think Marcus Hayes was letting you have it far beyond what was, I guess, in line there. So we'll see what the repercussions of this are, but I get where he's coming from. Should have gone about it differently for sure, but I'm curious to see what the outcome of this is. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you on the same page as me? Are you Team Joel? Do you think that he had a right to do that, or is this something that he really should catch a healthy punishment for? I do understand that outlook as well, but we'll see how things shake down from here. So appreciate each and every one of you guys tuning in this video once again. Make sure you smash that subscribe button if you have not already. Drop a like on this video, and hopefully we'll be talking about Joel Embiid actually on the floor in the somewhat short-term future. Peace.